Hello everyone, welcome back. This is DJ Ravine here, and I'm here with Mr. Bristow, our lead DJ instructor. We got to do this. So it's the legal requirement now. We can't do these anymore. But anyways, today we have the CDJ-3000 here. I've already had them, and I've already taken a look. This is your first time taking a look at this, though.
It is, yeah. I've seen obviously videos online, but this is the first time I've actually had a chance to get hold of them. But yeah, pretty impressed so far.
Well, we're going to go and take a quick look at what there is on the CDJ-3000, and particularly what impresses you about the CDJ-3000, because it all impresses me.
Obviously, the first thing you notice is the big screen. So you've got a much bigger area to view your tracks and navigate for tracks. One of the things I particularly like is the fact that you've got your active categories appearing down the left-hand side now with these little icons, so you can quite easily navigate to your kind of playlists or whatever you've chosen as those active categories, basically. And it's obviously got a much bigger area to view stuff, so that's the, sort of one of the prime things I've noticed about them.
And it's entirely a touchscreen now as well, so if you wanted to go and touch that side, the BPM or something, it's fine as well. You don't need to just use the knob anymore.
Yeah.
They've also changed the source button here, so when you press the source button, that's where you can see all of the different devices that are connected to the CDJ. So if you want to go and link your computer to your CDJs, that'll all appear here as well.
The other thing, obviously, is the 8 hotkey buttons. So previously on the Nexus 2s, you only had 4 hotkey buttons, but 2 banks. So you'd have to switch over to be able to access hotkeys E to H. And now you've got 8. Obviously, they're at the top here, so it's slightly risky going over the platter, but there's quite a lot of space. So it lends itself to doing a lot more, drumming, and you've got a lot more, ability to trigger different samples or whatever from those cue points.
A lot of people have asked about this, and no one seems to have talked about it. They asked just normal clicky buttons. They feel pretty similar to the Try It Out. What do you think?
Let's set one. Take quantize off. Yeah, I mean, it feels pretty much like the ones on the Nexus 2s, to be honest.
So they're basically exactly the same. I think they're slightly bigger.
Yeah.
I think they're slightly bigger than those Nexus 2 ones. But a lot of people were thinking, oh, they're like pads and stuff like that. No, they're not pads. They're still the same old clicky buttons. But I kind of like the tactile feel sometimes.
Yeah.
Just so you really know that you've actually hit it. Because sometimes you get the velocity sensitive pads and you just might graze it or something, and then it triggers. You just never really know.
I mean, that would be cool to have velocity sensitive hotkeys.
It would be very cool.
If there was an option to switch it, I reckon.
Yeah, that would be quite
obviously
cool.
You could recreate that by just kind of using the volume instead.
We have echoes now on mixes.
Yeah, I'm old school. Another thing that I've noticed is the color screen in the middle. So obviously you can see the artwork for a track on the platter itself, and the way that the cue point is indicated when you set it looks different, but it's a nice big area, so you can see the sort of rotating playhead, as it were.
And you can make that brighter too. You can actually adjust that all from the shortcut button now.
And the platter itself feels smoother, so it definitely feels different to a Nexus 2.
It's my favorite thing about the CDJ-3000. It just feels so... It just feels really, really nice and really, really smooth. It's so smooth. But like you noticed when you first started using it, it does take a little bit of time to get used to, especially if you're a scratch DJ and you've been used to the CDJs of old. I mean, that platter, the old CDJ platter, has been the same basically since the 1000.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously you've still got the jog adjust as well for this one, but I just think it takes a little bit of getting used to the feel of it, because it felt to me that it felt a tiny little bit late, but I think maybe it's just you need to sort of recalibrate yourself to that new jog wheel, basically.
It also feels like the jog wheel has more sensitivity than the older one, so I guess you would call it degrees of freedom or something like that. It just feels like it has a little, when you do like really slow things as well, it kind of senses a bit better.
Right.
I don't know. You want to try it out?
I mean, to be honest, the other CDJs are pretty responsive anyway, so it's kind of, if it's better than those, then it's going to be pretty, for scratching purposes, the CDJ-3000 Nexus 2s are pretty tight, so if it's an improvement on that, it's all good.
The jog wheels are better.
The other thing I like is the beat jump buttons that you've now got as separate buttons, rather than having to go onto a touchscreen and press it on there. And if you go into the menu, you can set the value for that. So if you go to the beat jump beat value, you can have it as small as half a beat and up to 64 beats, i.e. 2 8-bar sections.
And if you don't want to do it there, you can actually do it in the shortcut as well.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
See, learning on the job, that's it.
So that means you can obviously be playing a track and then just press beat jump and it jumps exactly a phrase or 2 phrases ahead or behind itself without you necessarily noticing. So if your track's running out, click that button a few times and it jumps back a few phrases or even double phrases if you've set it to 64 beats. So if I press it to the right, obviously you didn't really notice that it's just jumped. And I can jump through the track and the phrases are maintained. So if I was right at the end of the track, I might notice it's about to run out and then I can just quickly beat jump back. Obviously, if you hit a breakdown, it's going to be a bit more noticeable because then you're in, but it always jumps the equivalent sort of section, but in phrases.
Yeah, it's quite funny when you're saying I'm going to skip through the track because this song's name is actually literally called The Track.
The Track, yeah, I knew that. That was intentional, yeah.
Sure.
The other cool thing about that is obviously it works with loops. So if I've created a 4-beat loop and I press beat jump, it's going to jump to the next phrase but stay within that loop. So you can vary what your loop is and it will always keep playing. It's never going to run out. So you can be very creative by skipping through the track and just having different loops. Obviously you can change the loop length as well and then jump it. Another thing with the loops is you've now got 2 different sort of options for the loop lengths. So if you're in the first one, you've got your standard sort of quarter of a beat, half a beat, 1 beat, 2 beats, so on. If you go to the second menu, you get some sort of odd loop lengths like 3/4 or 3/2. So you can create these kind of 3/4 loops, which is quite good for kind of creatively, mixing stuff where it's like polyrhythmic rather than just your standard equal number of beats.
And that actually would work really well now that you have stuff like the V10 and now that the CDJ-3000 supports 6 CDJs via link. You have a lot more options to do that kind of stuff. You can literally use one CDJ to play like beeps and boops or something. It doesn't matter. The flagship still is the Nexus 2. And of course you can do 4 with that. But you now have the option with the Nexus 2, the DJM900 Nexus 2 to use the preview buttons. So when you press this button here on Q link, you can actually go like this, okay, and scrub through the track and listen to it in the headphones.
With the track playing.
With the track still playing.
That isn't affected.
Yes,
right.
Exactly.
Oh, that's useful, yeah.
You can also do that with browsing through your tracks that you're going to play as well. You can preview them like you do in Rekordbox. So when you press browse, you notice here it's got this preview on the left. It's just like how Rekordbox has it next to your playlists. And you can actually put your finger there and it will play the track.
Right. While the track's playing.
Playing.
That's very good. Useful, yeah.
But it only works with mixers that have Q-Link.
Yeah.
So on top of the display, you do also get the overlapping waveforms now.
Right.
So you can see here, I can see your waveform here. So if you're playing here, okay?
So you can see both on one screen.
Exactly. So that's really handy because I love that feature on the XDJ RX series. And it kind of looks a lot more like if you're using Rekordbox DJ on your computer. And it's really handy, especially if you're mixing, you can see where the beats line up as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so another thing that we also have is key shift. So key shift now allows you to transpose the track on the fly. So if we have this loop going on here, we can go up 1 semitone.
That's really handy.
It's a really, really cool feature. And I think that also comes down to the fact that they put a new CPU inside of the CDJs. Right. They call it an APU, audio processing unit. And now it lets us do a lot more advanced features inside of the CDJ. I feel like they probably might put some more cool things via firmware in the future. I'm not too sure. But they have made it sound like there is room for improvement for a lot of different things. Also, I've done independent testing on this, but the master tempo sounds a lot better as well.
Right. That's cool.
Anyways, back onto the key shift. On top of that, you also have key sync. So if I press this button here, you can now sync the keys together. So see, this one says F minor here. If I press key sync, now it's E minor.
That's
and
amazing as well.
Both those tracks will now be in key.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you did mention they did a change on Rekordbox as well.
Yeah, so normally you used to only be able to display the key as the actual traditional key names, but Rekordbox now has added a feature where you can change it to the Camelot key codes. So under the view option in Rekordbox settings, you go to key display info and there's the option to set it to alphanumeric. So that would mean that it would display the codes like 1A, 2A rather than the actual key names. So that's quite useful for those who use mixed in key or any system that uses that code Camelot system.
You used to be able to display them as Camelot as well. I mean, clearly you can see here on my playlist, some of them are in Camelot and some are in the traditional key system. It says here 808B, G, sharp minor. However, it still worked in the old Rekordbox. You could still display as Camelot or display as a traditional key, but you had to manually input the Camelot ones back in the day.
Yeah, and the problem is any key sync feature in Rekordbox, the software, would only work if you had the traditional key names and it didn't work with the codes. So presumably now with this option, it will work with either or.
Yeah, I think I need to set that and then export it again onto my USB, because you can see here, I've got this track here, 08A, but as soon as I load it, it goes to A minor
right
again.
Yeah, it's probably a Rekordbox setting. Yeah, that's with the most recent update of Rekordbox, so maybe you need to update.
Yeah, I don't do that. My firmware is probably all out of date as well. Make sure you update your firmware, please. So another thing that they've got that's new is here. Have you noticed? You got 2 buttons now for the beat loop instead of just a single button, which you held for the 8-beat loop.
Well, it's still half times 2 times though, isn't it? So
yes.
I mean, yeah, this loop area in every different incarnation of CDJ models, they tend to change it.
Yeah, like just very slightly.
Yeah. So the 2000 is different to the 2000 Nexus, and then there's a slight tweak to the Nexus 2, and again, they've carried that over onto the 3000. So maybe on the next release, they'll revert back to the original 2000. Because sometimes you had a beat loop button, sometimes you had the half time, 2 times buttons. There's slight variation between models, so it's always worth double checking how that particular model you're using works.
Well, now this doubles up as like the beat cutter as well.
Right.
So now on the CDJ-3000, which you've just noticed and been looking at, is that they now have a locking cable for the power, which is great because have you ever been to a gig and you got to play after the DJ and then they have to unplug Serato or unplug their laptop or something and then they go like this?
Yep.
I've always been afraid that like they're going to pull too hard one day and then they're just going to turn the whole CDJ off.
It's happened multiple times while I've been teaching where someone has pulled the decks forward and then complained, I can't make the CDJ work, and they've pulled the power cable out. So that is a good addition.
They've also upgraded the cue and the play buttons, which is also a good thing because people just smack that stuff like they just don't even care.
Yeah.
And apparently they're like two times more durable or something like
right.
that. Yeah. I think they do feel a little bit different too.
Yeah. Hard to tell, obviously. After a few months, I'll be able to judge that whether they've lasted the amount of sort of touching that happens on them.
How long do the old ones normally last? How often do we get them repaired?
Very regularly, but obviously we have got a lot of CDJs in here. So and certain lessons we spend more time using CDJs, so they go through some punishment.
I just realised also another thing. We're saying CDJ. They no longer play CDs.
No, for me that is quite a big thing because I occasionally buy secondhand CDs. I would like to be able to use, a CD. It's a bit old school, but technically, is it a CDJ because it can't play CDs anymore? But obviously, they decided to stick with that model number.
I have no problems with it. I think it's a marketing thing now because everyone calls a single standalone deck a CDJ. Doesn't matter who makes it. They're just going to call it a CDJ.
True. But yeah, obviously, one backup thing you can do at gigs is have DVDs with music on, like a little hard drive, have them in the CDJ-3000 Nexus 2s in case a hard drive goes wrong. That option is no longer available, but...
Wait, the Nexus 2 played DVDs?
You can read DVDs on a Nexus 2.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, so a data DVD, you can burn tracks to it and have it in there as a...
Oh, wow.
4 gigs worth of music on it.
Wow, I didn't realise that. Wow.
Well, obviously it doesn't matter then, because you didn't even know it did it anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Do you remember when the CDJ-3000 came out? And then there was another one before that was a CDJ-X1. I can't remember. But they were the first CDJs to play DVDs.
Yeah.
I thought that was going to be like the next big thing. We're all going to start playing DVDs. And then the 2000s came out. I was like, oh, guys, we've all got USBs. Let's just use USBs.
Yeah.
And I was like, that makes way more sense.
I'm sure people do use them for sort of video-related stuff, but
I don't think people use them anymore. I think everyone's
now Recordbox video is kind of out. You don't necessarily need to use them.
Yeah. In terms of CDJs, I think that's pretty much it. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Look, the CDJ, high-end CDJ, is always made for the club. Okay, and I can see a lot of these upgrades being really good for the club or for a festival, such as the bigger screen, and it's brighter screen too. The screen is now 150% brighter.
Right.
And that's good for an outdoor gig, for example. Their cue buttons, play buttons are more tough now, which is good for people that own them at clubs. And also stuff like the plug, for example. A lot of the upgrades are not realistically going to affect day-to-day DJing, but they will affect people that use and buy the CDJs the most, which are people like festivals, event hire, clubs, and people like us, essentially.
Obviously, the hot cue type stuff is quite useful for anyone, really, because it opens up a lot more creative possibilities.
And the key shift.
Yeah, that I will use regularly, I'm sure. But yeah, as you say, a lot of them, it might not affect that many people.
Oh, and also the jog wheel. I think, especially for yourself, as someone who does like to have a good scratch, you will really appreciate it after you get used to how they feel. Yeah. Because I think after going back to the old CDJs, after using CDJ-3000 jog wheels, it feels like the old CDJs have sand in them or something like that.
Yeah. I'll have to make that comparison. Obviously, I haven't used them for a while.
But anyways, that is the CDJ-3000. Hope you guys enjoyed that quick little overview. And of course, I think as time goes on, we'll all find out more about them. And if you do want to go and check them out, well, you could always come to our school here, Point Blank Music School here in London. We also have online, LA, Ibiza. But this studio here, can you tell us a bit more about this studio?
Well, this is obviously the DJ studio at Osborne Road. We've got 17 different workstations here with a combination of kit from obviously 2000s, 3000s, Serato, Tractor, record box, hardware, sort of controllers, hardware, effect units, whole range of different DJ equipment.
And the list goes on, and it always gets improved. We always get new kit as well, like these.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you guys so much for checking this out. Make sure you go check out pointblankmusicschool.com for more details, and we'll see you later.